It is Tuesday after yet another Michigan win, but more importantly, it's before the Ohio State game. That's where we're at. So we're gonna bring in Jake Butt, the Mackey Award-winning tight end, to talk about a little bit about Maryland, but more obviously about Ohio State. I know we have our preview show on Friday, Jake, but we can't wait. We can't just sit here and talk about Maryland when we've got the Buckeyes to look forward to, right?
No chance, man. I'm too fired up. I'm honestly ready to start talking about Ohio State, Michigan right now. But of course, like you said in the pregame show, there is similarities that we can kind of pull from this past game. But this is the game. This is pretty much the Big Ten championship this week. Like, the winner of this game is going to be favorited in the Big Ten. They're going to go to the Big Ten championship and probably be the overwhelming favorite. So in a sense, this is the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, it really pretty much is. I mean, you don't want to falter that next week if you do get there. If Michigan does get there, it's hard to beat the same team twice because you assume Michigan will be playing Wisconsin if they get there. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves because we're acting like it's a foregone conclusion. It is not. But one of the things that we maybe have a little bit of a minor disagreement on is kind of looking at this past Maryland game. I looked at it as a perfect scenario, right? Because it's something of a dress rehearsal, I felt, for Ohio State, because Michigan essentially was playing against a similar scheme on both sides of the ball. It's a little bit different on both ends, but it's similar enough. Man coverage, cover one, usually for Maryland. And then on the other side, a prolific passing offense. Michigan stopped that. Michigan exploited the defense on the other end. I love that, right? Because I've been saying all week last week, this is what Michigan needs to do. It's like getting a scout team performance. You say it doesn't matter as much. Why is that?
I mean, I agree. I love it. I love to see it. And I agree from a schematic standpoint, there is a lot of similarities. But Ohio State is in a league of its own. And really, out of every opponent we've played offensively, really in the entire country, I don't know that there's a more explosive offense than what Ohio State's been putting on display throughout the season. So sure, you can stop Maryland's pass game, but they don't have CJ Stroud. They don't have some of the weapons that Ohio State has on the edge. And it's encouraging, definitely. If you don't stop Maryland, you don't even have a chance. So from a schematic standpoint, it's good to dip your toes in the water and see some concepts, kind of practice how you're gonna defend them. But you got to turn it up a notch this week because they have NFL players all over the field. They have NFL players on their sideline, and same thing defensively, where, if Maryland plays cover 2 or cover 1 and Ohio State plays cover 2 or cover 1, those are different athletes on the field. There's different coaches on the sideline. There's a different level of play that you can expect to see. So you better do what we did against Maryland. Very excited about that. It gives me just more encouragement going into this week. But we're going to have to turn it up a notch, honestly. I think in order for us to win this week, we're going to have to play our best game. We're going to have to very much minimize mistakes and maximize opportunity. But that being said, I think this team can do it. And I think they've proved that throughout the season, that if there's ever a team to go in there and, to knock down Ohio State this year, it's this team.
Yeah, and I do think that they have to play a perfect game. We have seen that Michigan is capable of it, so I don't think that that's necessarily an issue, assuming that Ohio State doesn't force you into mistakes. Now, Ohio State isn't necessarily like it's not like super high in the turnover margin per se. It's not like they're positive in the turnover margin, just like Michigan, but it's not like they're putting up crazy numbers in that sense. So if you take care of the football, don't drop passes if they hit you in the hands.
Yep.
We saw that bite Michigan against Michigan State. We saw it bite Michigan in 2019. There was something like 8 straight dropped passes in the second half when that game was still in reach. Basically, if there's plays out there to be made, you have to make them, because if you don't, your opportunity is gone, right? You have to take advantage of everything that you get against Ohio State. And I do think that you are right in the sense that, yes, there is going to be, it's a higher caliber of athlete. It's a higher caliber of coaching, all of those things. That certainly all makes a huge difference. But I'm starting to feel, and I told you this earlier, I went into 2018. Of course, I predicted Michigan to win because everyone was. I was like the first person in the media at that, well, early into the season saying Ohio State is susceptible. Michigan can win this game. Got to the week. I picked Michigan to win. I publicly and privately, I told people I do not feel good about this game. I'm starting to kind of weirdly be on the other end of that this week. Like I'm not saying Michigan will win. I just kind of have a sneaky feeling like this game is going to be a heck of a lot better than people think, right? Because a lot of people are looking at it and saying, well, you look at the last 2 times they were blowout situations. Ohio State still has that amazing elite offense. Just look at what they did to Michigan State. How do you feel about this Michigan team? Like you just said that you feel kind of good, but like how do you really feel when you look at this game as far as just considering kind of everything, how daunting the task is? How do you feel about this game?
Well, Isaiah, I mean, we could go all the way back to, our preseason show. When, we talked about the season. This is when expectations were low. And football's a strange sport where stats don't tell the full story. A singular play doesn't tell the full story. There's more to football than, just 1 or 2 things. There's a certain aspect about belief and narrative and love for one another. And you can go back to preseason, which is what you and I have been talking about, and I've been emphasizing, why I love Cade. Leadership, love for his teammates, respect back to his teammates. Defensively, a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, the passion that he plays with every single Saturday, and you hear from within the walls of the Schembechler Hall, the way he carries himself and the way he leads these guys. That's why I'm encouraged. Now, there's a lot of talent on the field. Ohio State's extremely talented. Obviously, they're extremely dangerous, and you understand that, you're not gonna make a bunch of mistakes and come out victorious this Saturday. But it's going to take fighting. It's going to take belief in one another. It's going to take, you cannot have any quit. And you got to prepare to play your best at this point in the season. And it seems like Michigan's peaking right now. They seem to continue to raise the bar each week. Guys are getting healthy. We should be almost, if not, nearly almost at full force from a health standpoint. So you're super excited about that. And, with everything on the line, you have football where, of course, this is Ohio State, Michigan, and all the players care about is winning this game. But there's a whole nother aspect of this that I think, matters for us from a fan standpoint, from a media standpoint, where, Ohio State's been tipping the scale in their favor from a recruiting standpoint. Hey, we just beat Michigan. Why would you come to why would a 5-star go to Michigan when Ohio State wants them? We beat them every year. That's what they're telling these recruits. Why would you go to Michigan when we're the ones that are going to the Big Ten championship every year? That's a narrative that allows them to continue to secure more talent. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So not only do you want to win this game because for the first time you'll beat Ohio State in almost a decade, you're going to go to the Big Ten championship for the first time in a really, really long time. It also trickles down into recruiting. It trickles down into narrative surrounding Coach Harbaugh, surrounding the entire Michigan program where, hey, man, we are who we say we are. All right. Yes. We haven't always performed like it. There's been times where we've flirted with it, but we've fallen short. But if you can go and win this game when Ohio State's going to be heavily favored, and I think rightfully so, right? I think they've proved that more so than we have this season. I like it that way. I don't want to go in favor. They're probably going to be favored. If we can take them down in our own stadium, and if we can do it in a convincing manner, maybe not in a blowout sense, but in a sense that these guys fight from the first quarter to the last. They make plays in the biggest moments. That's going to be critical because, again, I'm kind of going on here, Isaiah, but what is Ohio State's narrative? In the biggest moments, in the biggest games, they show up. There's a certain belief that even when Ohio State goes down or even when they flutter, that they're just going to find a way to win. Our narrative seems to be different than that. So I just want to see these guys fight, and that's what they've done all season. That's the way Coach Harbaugh's been carrying himself. That's why our coordinators and the rest of our staff has been carrying themselves. The players from the first player down to the 100th player. There's so much belief coming from this program that if there is a team to do it, it's going to be these guys, and I'm excited for them.
Lots of things to unpack there. Number one, I think the most important thing is that narrative of of what these teams do in big games. Aside from Michigan State, when it seemed like really everything was going against Michigan, I don't think that Michigan necessarily flinched. It was a barrage of bad things between what Michigan State was doing, what Michigan itself was doing, what the officials were doing. And I don't think they flinched. They were just on the bad end of it. But we've seen Michigan all year long with the mantra, we don't flinch, and they haven't. They've faced adversity. They went into a Wisconsin game that everyone thought they were going to lose, and then they won, and then everyone said, well, this Wisconsin team isn't very good. It turns out they are, right? So then they go to Nebraska, and Nebraska gives them the same game that Nebraska gives everybody, and Michigan finds a way to win, really found a way to win rather than, and just as much as Nebraska found a way to lose. Penn State, all of these things, that this is a team that doesn't flinch. And as far as narratives are concerned, it's with recruiting. Yes, you need to flip that switch. There's certainly guys that are on the line, and they know this, right? If you want to get Josh Connerly, the offensive tackle from Seattle, Washington, that's a 5-star. If you want to flip Damani Jackson, I know he's already decommitted from USC, but if you want those guys, you have to win this game, because if you win this game, they're in. If you don't, you've got a bit more work to do, and they certainly could end up at another program. And here's the thing is some people say, well, how can you beat all these athletes? Listen, teams that have not as good of recruiting beat 5-star teams all the time. If that wasn't the case, Georgia, who arguably has the biggest collection, everyone always says, like, Ohio State, Alabama, it's Georgia that has the most 5-star talent. And yes, this year they look great. Georgia has been a Lloyd Carr style Michigan team for a very long time. No offense to Lloyd Carr, 9-3 every year. Every time they get to a big game, they fold. So it's time for the team to rise up, right? Michigan State does it against Michigan all the time.
Yep.
So Michigan's got athletes, and I think one of the things that I'm really encouraged about when I look at this game is that there's a new guy every week on offense. But for a while, I felt like that was a detriment, right? Because there wasn't, and we're going to kind of go back to Maryland here for a second, because it seemed like, all right, they just don't have a go-to guy. They don't have, they obviously don't have Ronnie Bell, but it seems like every week there's someone new that does something. I mean, it was Ronnie Bell in week 1, really, week 2, Blake Corum, we'll fast forward to week 4, and it's Roman Wilson. You go to Nebraska, and it's a couple different players, of course, in that one. But again, Blake Corum and Eric All a little bit, and Hassan Haskins. It was like a nice group effort. You get to some of the games like Penn State, and it's Hassan Haskins. You go to Michigan State, it's Andrell Anthony and Eric All. This last week, Donovan Edwards.
Yeah.
So Michigan's got its athletes. It's spread out. How do you feel about, like, first off, like, looking back at what you saw from Donovan Edwards in this last game, and how much of a factor can he, or maybe just the field, be against Ohio State, considering you don't have one guy per se, but you've had all these different guys at least show out big in one game?
Man, I mean, how blessed are we, man? In watching Donovan Edwards play, you didn't hear his name too often, and rightfully so, because of what Blake and Hassan have been able to do throughout the season has been truly remarkable. And you want to have one good back, but boy, it's nice to have 2. All of a sudden, look, we have 3. And here's the thing about a running back. Okay, a lot of guys, maybe not a lot of guys, but it's par for the course to be able to take a handoff in the backfield and carve out yards. It is such a weapon to be able to run routes and catch and then create after the catch. Some of those routes weren't just swing routes or checkdowns. I'm seeing him run halfback option routes where he's squaring up the linebacker, and he has a chance to go out, to go in, to slant it, and he's making the right decision. It's a quick decision. He looks like a receiver. He's setting up his route. He's getting the linebacker to bite outside. Then he takes him inside, catches the pass, and then he's doing something after the catch with it. So to have the ability to threaten the defense from multiple angles, where you're showing one formation, but from that formation you can give them multiple looks, it makes us a little bit less predictable. And I think, in recent years, we would be predictable, where, you'd get in certain situations, you'd see Michigan line up and everybody knew what was coming. And against lesser teams, that's fine. You're just going to overpower them. Against a team like Ohio State with the talent they have, you're going to have to get a little bit more creative. You're going to have to rely on a little bit more scheme and creativity to move the chains. And when you have a back like Donovan Edwards and shoot, Hassan Haskins and Blake, they're threats out of the backfield as well, as much as they are carrying the ball. When you're in the passing game, it's a game about matchups. So yes, your receivers are your primary pass catchers. Tight ends are probably secondary. But is a great matchup a linebacker against your running back? I might lean towards the fact that our running back should be able to beat a run-stopping downhill linebacker in coverage and create after the catch. It's a game of matchups. And, to see him step up has been critical. You touched on it. We've had different guys step up each week. Let's put it together. Let's have a couple guys have a coming out performance. Let's have a couple guys this week really excel, and would like to see maybe, 2 or 3, 80, 90, 100-yard pass catchers. Of course, running the ball is going to be critical with Ohio State's offense. They're extremely explosive. So the more you can chew up clock and keep them on the sidelines, get them out of rhythm, the better. So a lot of elements, man. We could talk about this game for an hour, but ultimately, I think you said it, where you have certain guys stepping up each week, and it's just this ladder that's slowly climbing. Gives Gaddis more options from a play calling standpoint. Give Cade more trust on, hey, I can throw it to any one of these guys on the field, and they're going to make something happen with it. So it's going to take everybody to be at their best this weekend. But boy, I think we can do it.
And one of the things I think that isn't mentioned too much, and I think this is very much a true fact here. I think like other years, this game has meant more to Ohio State just because of how fanatical they are about the game. I think this year it matters more to Michigan, not just the players, but certainly the coaches, right? Jim Harbaugh with his record against Ohio State and the way the last 2 games have gone and all of those types of things. I think that can play a factor, certainly in the game planning. And just we've seen Michigan really outsmart a lot of teams as well, coaching wise, for the most part. And obviously, then it comes down to execution and all of that. And I like some of the things that I'm hearing, particularly from the players when they talk about this game, because like we hear things from like Cade McNamara yesterday on Inside Michigan Football Radio Show with John Jansen say, I'm not concerned with the Ohio State defense because I know I'm going to be prepared and we're going to find ways to take advantage of them just like we do every other team, right? He's not bowing down to the Buckeyes. Aiden Hutchinson says, we are not scared of them, right? We can go out there and we can perform just as well as them. We're not scared of them. Of course, certain people take exception to that. I've seen, I've had unfortunately, some friends that are in the Buckeyes media that are retweeting some of these things with snarky comments being like, all these Michigan people are running their mouth. But this is exactly the type of mentality you have to have, right? To go into a game like this.
Oh, absolutely. And what do you think? Ohio State was only going to come out at 95%, and now they're going to come out 100%. Hell no, Isaiah. They're going to come out and they're going to give you their best. That's the game. They have that Michigan clock in their building. They have Michigan period all season. They understand the magnitude of this moment. They've proven that. They're going to give you your best shot at all. And it's not like this is, bulletin board material that's coming out from these Michigan players. Like you said, all it is saying, hey man, we believe in ourselves. We believe in Coach Harbaugh and our offensive defensive coordinator. We believe we can play with these guys and win the game. And I don't want to hear anything else from my players. Buckeye fans, I'm from Columbus. I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of it. You guys, listen, that's what makes the rivalry fun. It's fun because there's back and forth and there's a little bit of, talking, here and there. But man, it's going to be nice to get a win and shut you guys up at some point, man. I think for this weekend, I'm so excited and encouraged by the way our leaders are carrying themselves, because it starts from there and it trickles on down. Coach Harbaugh, the way he's carried himself, he's the head man. Cade, the leader and the voice of the offense, is what everyone in the building says. Cade is our leader. Aiden Hutchinson, clearly top 5, top 10 pick. He came back to he came back this year for this moment. He's going to be playing like a man possessed this weekend. So listen, man, it's going to be a dogfight. This is the matchup. This is why you come to the University of Michigan. This is why you love the game of football, is when you have a storied, historic rivalry, but then you have the implications behind it. You have guys showing up that both teams' seasons are literally on the line. Coach Harbaugh said it, this is a playoff game this week, so I'm really excited to watch. I'm nervous, man. I'm this is my first year where I'm actually a fan, and I'm like, I'm pulling hairs out. I'm like emotional. I'm riding the roller coaster. It's actually better when you're a player because you have like control over the outcome. You can go out there and make a play. When you're a fan, it's just like, I'm like, my heart is beating, my chest gets tight. I commend you, Michigan fans, for continuing to support us as you have throughout the years. Because, boy, being a football fan where you're passive, it's tough. But I'm excited, man. I love these guys. I love this team. It's gonna be a hell of a game this Saturday.
You sure you don't have another year of eligibility out there? I'm sure we could get you out on the field if that's
I
if that's what
wish, right? I gotta like shave my beard or something. I don't know. Maybe wear a fake mustache and get off the field. Like act like I'm a portal transfer that just got into school this week. Maybe
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
a transfer portal tight end Bake Jut.
yeah, that's right. Yes, and they got a lot of 88s. They got like 3 guys wearing 88 right now. So I mean, I could just swap for one of them. I bet.
Yeah, exactly. No one else needs to know. It's our secret. This isn't on the internet. None of those things. So one of the things that we talked about pre-show that I want to bring up here, and I'll put this up on the screen, probably at a very rudimentary graphic so that it doesn't take forever for me to put out. But so like you had seen some alarming stats, and I happen to see those same ones. So here's the counter here. But first, here's the stats. So this comes from what I suppose is a Buckeye fan, given the responses that they had. So Michigan has the number 7 scoring defense in college football. Here are the offenses they have faced. Number 59, 106, 45, 113, 76, 64, 124, 41, 121, 80, 84. So the average is 83. Ohio State is number 1. I countered that because I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. But Ohio State, who have you played defensively that is so great? So when you look at who they've played, yeah, they've played one defense that's good, and that was an opening week against Minnesota, and they did not look that good against Minnesota. Still good, right? 495 yards, but they're number 4 in the country now as far as defense. Not that Minnesota's played a heck of a lot of great offensive teams being in the Big Ten West, but Ohio State's rest of their teams, 58 as far as defenses are ranked, 58, 67, 116, 60, 97, 66, 28, 56, 43, 120, and then they face number 10 Michigan. So
yeah.
It's one of those things where I think you really can throw the stats out the window, right? Because it is a game of matchups, like you said. And one of the matchups that I really like in this game is Michigan's passing offense, which, again, it doesn't look flashy as far as the stats are concerned, but when Michigan wants to pass, it seems to be able to do so quite well. Passing offense against the number 99 pass defense.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good matchup. Michigan's pass defense against Ohio State's pass offense, that's a strength on strength matchup, at least from a statistical standpoint. For you, what are the keys to either one of those things really truly working for in Michigan's favor?
So, I mean, just to kind of touch on this real quick, is when you have stats like that, you got to take them with a grain of salt in college football. I think stats tell more of a story in the NFL where, it's a limited roster size. Games are usually close. Your best players usually play from the first snap to the last. Whereas in college football, they can be heavily skewed because, some of your matchups are against much lesser teams. Some of them are against closer teams. There's a massive, massive discrepancy, in certain weeks. So stats, maybe they're a benchmark, but they don't tell the full story. But you did mention it. Now, the keys for me for this game are, when it starts with our defensive side of the ball against Ohio State's offensive side of the ball. If we don't stop them, I don't think we can score with Ohio State. We're going to have to make them work. And how do we do that? They have one of the most explosive offenses in the country. Their explosive play count is one of the best, if not the best in the country. Their touchdowns going past 20, 30, 40 yards are some of the best in the country. So they're taking shots and connecting on them. So what we need to do defensively is not give up the big play. Can you make Ohio State drive, put together 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives? They've shown they can do that. But boy, it's a lot easier when you just drop back and have an 80-yard touchdown down the sideline. So making sure our secondary is keeping everything in front of them. When there's a play to be made, come in there and try to bat it down, but at least rally and make a tackle. Their receivers are elusive and do make people miss. And then, what coincides with that is having our pass rushers get off the ball and get in CJ Stroud's face. A couple shots to the rib, man, a couple of kidney shots, a couple of liver shots. That bruises and you combine that with, a lot of there's a clock ticking as a quarterback. So when CJ's sitting back there and he's looking at his first read down the field, it's hard to get there as a pass rusher if the ball's out on time. You almost don't have a chance. So if you can stay back and keep his eyes on there a little bit longer, now he's got to hitch and come to his, second read. That's another split second. Now he's dumping the ball 5-6 yards down the field, but he's also taking a shot from Ojabo or Hutchinson or some of our other defensive line and linebackers. So you're making Ohio State's offense work, but you're also getting a chance to take a shot at CJ Stroud and bruise him up. So going into the fourth quarter, I mean, you remember watching Penn State and, some of the other quarterbacks this season, guys have been pretty sore walking off the field. At a minimum, we have to ensure that CJ Stroud feels the same way. And then from the offensive side of the ball, I know Ohio State's pass defense isn't necessarily one of the best in the country, and we do need to exploit that. But as we know, what Michigan's DNA is a run-first offense, and I think we should commit to the run creatively, not just right up the middle, not just in a predictive way, but commit to running the ball because, again, it's recognizing how explosive Ohio State is offensively. If you can elongate drives, if you can have success running the ball, 5, 6, maybe some 10 and 15-yard chunk runs, those wear on a defense throughout the game. So we got a staple of backs. We can establish the run early. It's just going to make you more comfortable throughout the entire game plan, throughout the game. And it'll balance with the fact, let's get them out of their habits and MO of explosive plays. Let's make them drive the ball down and beat us. And for us, let's run the ball. Let's keep their offensive off the side of the field. And of course, got to score 7 points in this game. 3 points will not beat Ohio State. You don't want to get in the field goal kicking contest in this game. You need 7 points. So looking to have some creative plays down in the low and high red zone that ensure that we're getting 7 points. So it's going to be a hell of a matchup.
One last thing for me is I think that you look at the way that these teams have played all year. Ohio State has been very rarely in duress. Obviously, they lost to Oregon early in the year, and part of that was being in some true duress. Obviously, they've had moments. Minnesota, there were moments, and they pulled out of that. Nebraska, of course, Penn State, but I feel like Michigan's been a little bit more tested as far as being under duress. That might not, that might not end up being a good thing in the end, because it might be like, well, that's evidence of them not being as good as Ohio State, but it might actually help it in this game, especially if Michigan can get and maintain a lead on Ohio State. How do they respond? Because they haven't had a lot of come from behind situations. They've had moments where they've been up and maybe another team ties them or is, relatively close to them, and then they just pull away. How would it go if Michigan can find a way to get and maintain a lead? So that'll be interesting. Any last thoughts from you, Jake, on this game before we've got a whole other Friday to talk about it too. So
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to Friday. We can kind of dive into, more of the details and, talk about what we might expect on each side of the ball. But man, the implications, the magnitude of this game are so important. And as a player, this is what you dream of. This is the week that, I'm sorry. I know we love our education at Michigan, but your mind isn't on your classes. You're not going to get proper sleep. Everything's turned up. You're dialed up a notch. And you practice every week with, that level of intensity, but whether you like it or not, this week means a lot more. And for us, Coach Harbaugh said it, this is our playoff game. This is win or go home. It starts this weekend. And I like it, man. It's kind of the same way it's been all season, where our back's against the wall. I don't know that outside of a couple of us and outside of that locker room, I don't think many people are giving Michigan a chance this weekend. I don't care, man. I don't care. I don't care if we win by 1 point, 10 points, or 30 points. It's about just finding a way to win. And I'm visualizing this ahead of time, Isaiah, is, can we get a bunch of Michigan fans down in the field? Do you rush the field after this win? Do you, go to give Coach Harbaugh a hug and, maybe carry Coach Harbaugh off the field after everything he's been through and all the shots he's taken? For him to go out there and prove everybody wrong, I'm just going to speak it into existence and visualize it, because this team deserves it, and Coach Harbaugh deserves it, and this program deserves it. And boy, man, will this be a sweet, sweet victory if we can come out on top on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see if the line's moved. It has moved in Ohio State's favor. It opened at 7.5. It's to 8.5 Ohio State right now.
Yeah.
So certainly a growing belief in the Buckeyes from the odds makers. But again, Michigan wants to play. They say that we are embracing this underdog mentality. They've had that all year. People have told them all year that they weren't going to be able to beat Washington. They weren't going to be able to beat Wisconsin. They weren't going to be able to beat Penn State. They've done all of that. So people are telling them they can't beat Ohio State, saying it's impossible. Listen, this will be the best team that Ohio State will have faced all year long. I'd say what you will about Michigan State. This is a much more complete team, right? Michigan State had a fatal flaw in its pass defense. Michigan, unless Ohio State discovers a fatal flaw, Michigan doesn't have one per se. So certainly they've done that before. 2018, the defense. I pin a lot of that on Don Brown, who certainly knew better in 2019 and did nothing about it. But nonetheless, all right, that's going to do it for us today, because I'm pretty sure this is our longest X's and O's episode. I'm not sure, but it feels like it in a good way. But we could go on for an hour. I could certainly talk about this game for longer than that. But we've got another show. I'm sure it's going to be an extra long Friday preview episode, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So the Mackey Award-winning tight end Jake Butt, I'm Isaiah Hole. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you in a couple more days.